Is the 51st anniversary of Jimi Hendrix's November 23rd, 1968 performance right here at what was once Curtis Hixon Hall. I would like to thank my sponsors, family and friends, and the wonderful members of the Hillsborough County Historical Advisory Council for making this day possible. I would like to recognize the attendance of City Council members, the Honorable Guido Maniscalco. And if there are any other elected officials and attendants, could you please make yourself known so that we can recognize you as well. All right, thank you all for being here today. So, many ideas that become reality are inspired by a personal connection, and my personal connection to Jimi Hendrix goes deep. I became aware of his music as a teenager, and I felt an almost spiritual connection to his message and the notes that he played. His message of know yourself, then bring yourself forth with love, and be bold as love is what appealed to me most. He seemed to live an authentic life, and he played his music authentically. He never really played the same thing the same way twice. A constant in my life was coming home and listening to his music and discovering more and more beauty and meaning each day. Eventually, listening to his music wasn't enough, and I just had to learn how to play it. Luckily, I'd been playing the violin since grade school, and the transition to guitar was that much easier. But playing guitar versus violin in high school is way cooler, right? I chose my first song to learn was Purple Haze, and I realized quickly that there's not much you can do as a beginner on a guitar with Jimi Hendrix. One of my favorite memories from back then was on my 17th birthday. I was taking a guitar lesson, and my teacher was playing a red candy apple Fender Stratocaster, and midway through the lesson, he hands me the guitar, and I play it. And again, I was a beginner, had only been playing a couple months this time. So it was an amazing feeling to have a real guitar in my hands. And he said, your parents came in and bought this guitar for you today, and it's yours. So, and it's actually that guitar right there, my first real guitar. So that was super cool. And yeah, I'll never forget driving home. It was back in Los Angeles. I remember driving home, and I remember cranking Spanish Castle Magic super loud, and I had my guitar right next to me. So that'll be a memory that will never leave me. Fast forward to 2016, I was an undergraduate right here at the University of Tampa, and that's when I founded the University of Tampa Guitar Club. And I learned from many of the members, a lot of them my friends, that Jimi Hendrix was also the inspiration for them of how they got into guitar and music. And I also meet a lot of different musicians in our great city, and they say the same thing, that Jimi Hendrix was their main inspiration. More recently, back in February, living in downtown Tampa, driving past and walking past Curtis Hixon Park every day, I learned that this was the site of Curtis Hixon Hall. And this is actually where Jimi Hendrix played 2 sold-out concert performances, and they were titled The Presentation of Fire. And Tampa actually means sticks of fire in Native American. So that's just a really cool, interesting fact. Jimi Hendrix's dedication and passion to bring his truth forth in his music speaks to everyone. His message of starting with knowing yourself and with love and becoming bold as love brings all walks of life together. And I envision a marker to reflect that. I spoke personally, and perhaps for many of the musicians that I've met along the way, when I brought this matter before the Hillsborough County Historical Advisory Council back in March, and I would just like to thank them so much for approving this and making this day possible. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Dietz, the chair of the Hillsborough County Historical Advisory Council. She's been a huge and valuable help to me throughout this whole process, so please give it up for Jennifer.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Better? Okay. So good morning. I am here, as Chase said, on behalf of the Hillsborough County Historical Advisory Council. And what our board does is we oversee all of the historic markers in the county. So when you're going around and you see the green historic markers, those are the ones that are approved by our board. And I would actually like to acknowledge the fellow board members that we have in attendance here today. We have Allison Smith, who you'll see taking pictures. And we have Shirley Fox Knowles, who is also our city clerk. And did I miss any board members? Those are the 2 that I saw that are in attendance with us today. Okay, great. The Jimi Hendrix marker that we are dedicating this morning is very special because it's the first historical marker in Hillsborough County to be dedicated for a specific musician. There are markers that mention different musicians, but there's not one that's actually in the county that is specifically for one musician. So this is a special marker for us, and that is something that will be brand new. I would like to also recognize Chase for all of his initiative and all of his dedication in making this marker happen. He's been very devoted to it from the start, from the first meeting where he presented it to us through every step in the process, and also his friends and family that have been so dedicated toward making this happen. Not only is this the first marker in Tampa to recognize an individual musician, but I did a little bit of research and I actually think that this is the first marker of its kind worldwide for Jimi Hendrix. Now there are various markers worldwide that mention Jimi Hendrix, and he's usually, mentioned with some other significant musicians. And there are also plaques on his former home and his studio, and there are things noted where he played. But this one is unique because this one really honors his legacy. It's a tribute to Jimi Hendrix. It's a tribute to what he did here in Tampa, and it really makes it stand out. And people may say that he did not spend much time in Tampa. I've heard that from a couple of people. But really what you need to understand is the cultural impact that he had was so vast and far-reaching that it really extended worldwide and beyond, just one location. It spanned generations and geographic locations. And this marker is like the John F. Kennedy marker that we dedicated a few blocks up. It really captures a snapshot of that moment in time when he played here. And it's incredible to be dedicating this today on the 51st anniversary of when he was here in Tampa. So I would now like to read to you the marker text that we will be unveiling, and I like to do this because afterwards it's a little crazy. Everyone's trying to take pictures with the marker. Sometimes you may not always get a chance to read the text, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Jimi Hendrix is one of the most influential musicians and guitarists of the 20th century. His legacy, dedication, and passion for music transcends all boundaries and brings people from all walks of life together. He played 2 nights here in Tampa, August 18th and August 23rd, 1968, at what was once Curtis Hixon Hall, which is now the beautiful Curtis Hixon Waterfront Park. It is important to note that out of the 216 concerts Hendrix played from 1967 to 1970 with the Jimi Hendrix Experience, 2 of them were in Tampa. The Jimi Hendrix Experience had been on the road touring for at least 2 years by the time they came to the city for their presentation of Fire. Both concerts were near sellouts with over 7,000 fans attending each night. Sadly, Jimi Hendrix was only 27 years old when he passed away, but his life had a lasting impact on the musicians of Tampa Bay, and it is part of the rich history of downtown Tampa. Find yourself first, and then your talent. Work hard in your mind so it can come alive. Everybody come alive. Everybody love alive. And those lyrics are from his song, Message of Love. So, our board, thank you. Our board is so pleased to be dedicating this marker. It's very timely, and I know that Chase has some great speakers lined up for us today, so without further ado, I will turn it back over to him so that we can hear from some people who actually worked with Jimi Hendrix.
Hey everyone, so first our next speaker will be Michael Braun. He actually knew Jimi Hendrix and did a lot of his wardrobe design. And without further ado, Michael.
Good morning, boys and girls and fans. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just got 2 small. Too small now? Can you hear me? Yes, okay. I have 2 small stories. One is that I learned from being around him that it was legal, all right, and encouraging to be yourself. And by that I'm saying that he wrote us a letter, and my wife has some paperwork on the side. If you want to write your name down, your email, we could send you a copy of this letter via email. He wrote me a letter, and in the letter, which is just business, written on the back of telephone memo pad. I know the people here that aren't gray won't know what that is, but in the day, there was you would get a telephone call and they would write down, Jimi Hendrix called such and such a date. This is the topic of the thing. Here's the time of it. Here, call him back at this phone number. My statement to you is that he's just asking for more clothes in this color and that clothes, this and that. And this shirt was worn by him in a thing called Life magazine. You maybe never heard of that, but that we made. And on the shirt is, instead of buttons and buttonholes, another way of closing the shirt. He says in the letter, try to match the color of the sticky type buttons to the color of the shirt, or as close as possible. Now you look at me and say, what are we even talking about, Michael? What are sticky type buttons? Sticky type buttons are what's called Velcro. It just came out at that time. They only made it in white, and I sewed on the inside of the shirt 4 squares of sticky type buttons, Velcro. What I'm saying to you is that he spoke on camera and off camera in his language, in his poetry, in his comfort zone, being himself. He gave this a legal thing. And the other thing he said in the letter, he says, any other thing you come across, don't be hesitant to take and make something, anything, to your fancy, as long as it's specially made as art, unquote. So what I'm saying to you, he's saying to me, at that time, in his culture, Mike, just go for it. Not just go for it under $2,000. Mike, just go for it under $100 or $50, or it's got to be green. All he's saying is go for it. The other thing he's saying in the letter is, I need clothes desperately. He says that line. Send whatever you have espresso. And I need clothes by February 18th. Now, what I'm saying back to you is this. I received this letter, and I'm reading it, and I'm thinking, dude, who are you talking to? What do you mean you need clothes espresso? I just sent you 3 or 4 months ago shirts, pants, jackets, scarves, armbands. What are you even talking about? And then I slowly, because I'm a little mentally slow, I slowly put it together. Where were the clothes going? The girls were borrowing, stealing, or just taking the clothes, as he's going to also say. If you get a piece of Jimi Hendrix, they're gone with it. The other thing I'm saying to you is that he said to my little Italian business partner, who we made these clothes, this was in St. Petersburg, and then we moved to Tampa. He said to her, women are having sex with me just to say they had sex with Jimi Hendrix. So she tells me the story. I'm 25, 26 years old and a moron. And I say, well, if there's a problem, you know, me and the boys, we can help fill in the blanks. We don't want anyone's feelings to be hurt. You understand what I'm saying? And then I tuned into what was really going on, meaning where we can come here today and say, well, what do you think of the palm trees, or what do you think of the grass, or how do you like the water feature behind me? Everybody that went around him wanted something from him and pulled on his shirt. Everybody. We think we know that fame and money do not bring happiness, and I say, you think you know this, you don't know this. I don't know this. This is a lie. And what Jimmy was saying to Tony was, this is a sad thing because people aren't one-on-one with him. And that's where fame is at. So that's the sad part of it. I got another 413 Jimi Hendrix stories, but I'm going to quit now. Good to meet you all, and nice to honor him and his gift that he gave to us of music, of art, of love.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. It was awesome. So now, Michael, that's right. No mysteries here, right? And then I would like to introduce Gerardo, Jerry Velez. He actually played percussion at Woodstock with Jimi Hendrix, so without further ado.
Yeah. Okay, I was 20 years old, Jimmy was 24. We met at a place called Steve Paul's Scene. I was a guy who hung out and would listen to records and play with records, and that's how I learned how to play percussion. And when I met him at Steve Paul's Scene, I was already going there with an incredible musician named Kenny Rankin. Some of you may know Kenny. He was my dear brother, and if you played at Steve Paul's Scene, you were allowed to come in and hang out. It was like one of the coolest celebrity musicians. You know, at 20, that was very meaningful. So I go there, and Rick Derringer has his band, and they just had Hang On Sloopy, which was a big hit, which is now the official state song of Ohio, and it's also the official song of the Ohio State football team. So they were singing that, which is a little bizarre. But anyway, Rick Derringer, he was, I don't know, he was all of 17, 18. We were kids. And I sat in with Rick, because I already played with Rick a bunch of times, and Jeff Beck, who you may know is a great English guitar player, but he's a blues guitar player, and he doesn't play the style, no one played the style that Jimmy played, that's for sure, but also was as experimental as Jimmy was. Jimmy was about that. Many of the other musicians and guitar players were about following the tradition. We like to use tradition as our stepping stone and then throw it out the window and be creative. And that was one of the friend of mine. I have to leave soon. So that was how we met, and I was playing, and I went back and I sat down. I was with all my friends, and he was sitting behind me, and he taps me on the shoulder. He said, "Hey, man, that was really some good playing. You want to come up when I'm playing?" I said, "Sure, let's do it." My friend goes, "That's Jimi Hendrix, that's Jimi." I said, "I know, but you know, I'm 20 years old. I have my own destiny, not his destiny." So I said, "I don't know if I'm going to fit in." So after I played with Rick, we played together, and it was fantastic. I went and I sat down. He sat down. He said, "Listen, I'm going to go to the studio. We're going to record. You want to come by?" This is, yeah, what time? 4 a.m. So I get there at 4 a.m. Buddy Miles is there, Stephen Stills, a bunch of other people. You know, we're all hanging out, getting buzzed. That was part of the ritual, as everyone knows. So that was what we did, and we played for about 10 hours. And then I went up to the lounge afterwards, and it was really great. I went up to the lounge, we all smoked cigarettes, went up there, had a cigarette. Jimmy came up and I said, "So what are you thinking?" He says, "Well, I want to start this new band. I want to do something more experimental. I'm tired of the experience. I want to add Latin music. I want to add African music. I want to add funk, blues, all of it together." It was the embryo for fusion music, which I had the pleasure of being one of the original members of a group called Spyro Gyra, which you may know, we're the best-selling contemporary jazz group of all time. And I'm very proud of that. Thank you. They're still doing it 44 albums later. They have a new album called Vinyl Tap. It's so we're still fantastic. But anyway, so I said, "Oh, so you want to start a larger band?" He said, "Yeah, I'm bringing in Larry Lee, who played rhythm guitar with me in the Armed Forces. And Billy Cox was my buddy, played bass, and I think that's going to be the texture of this. And we're going to bring in Buddy, because Buddy was amazing, played organ, played guitar, sang fantastically well, and an amazing pocket drummer, which we needed for what we were doing, because we were adding African drums, we were adding Latino drums. So that was the beginning of the Gypsy Center Rainbows, Band of Gypsies. So we were up in Woodstock, the town of Woodstock. We had a house up there, and we would sit in a room and put on records and play the records, whether we just put our hands in it, it was jazz or classical or whatever. We just played along, and we were trying to interpret what our next move was going to be. And we spent a lot of time together, because I was very well connected in New York, although I was 20, and I would take him everywhere. Jimmy, although he was a wonderful guy, he was shy in a larger group. He would be the guy sitting over there observing, and I would be the guy climbing on the chair. So I was the catalyst for him, and we spent a lot of time we hung out together. You know, when you're 20, he's your best friend, I'm his best friend. And we spent that time together up in Woodstock. My sister lived up there, Martha Velez. She had an album out with Eric Clapton, Mitch Mitchell, Brian August. She was in the original cast of Hair. So we had a real relationship with the town of Woodstock 3 years prior to the festival when Bob Dylan and everyone moved up to Woodstock. So I'm the executive director of entertainment for the Jimi Hendrix Foundation. And what Chase has done here, I want to give a round, but let's all give a round of applause to this young man who has the insight and the foresight to want to commemorate something that happened here that not too many people know about, but now they do, because exponentially you're going to tell more people, and so on and so on and so on. They're going to know this plaque is here, and they're going to come and by and look at this plaque, and you can be proud of this plaque of yours in this town of arguably, not arguably, you can ask Eric Clapton, any of those guys, who was the best guitar player in contemporary music of all time, and that's Jimi Hendrix, hands down. Do you agree? Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's why we're here, because he had amazing technique. But you don't think about that when he's your buddy. You know, we're chasing girls. I'm 20, he's 24. What do? You know, you go out, you drink, you party, you chase girls, you push one another out of the way. That's what friends do, and we were friends. As much as we were in music together, because it wasn't, you know, it was the times. The times was about character development and about relationships. And that's what you're missing now, the intimate relationships of character development. People are isolated now, so you really don't go through the trials and tribulations of dating and things like actually pressing the flesh. That's what we did in those days, and we're trying to remember how to do that, and commemorating situations like this allows us to remember that things do evolve, but certain traditions should remain. Being good people, having empathy for others, developing new styles, allowing younger people to do their thing and supporting them wholeheartedly. And that's what Jimmy and I, we just experimented. People say, hey, Purple Layers, and we'd laugh. We don't want to play that stuff. That's done, that's been done. Don't forget, back then it was you did albums that spoke of your life at that particular period of time, and we would always rush to the stores and get those albums and put them on a turntable, and we would listen to our heroes. And that was part of the Jimi Hendrix experience. That was part of the Woodstock experience. And, you know, it was a time that allowed me to realize, oh, I can play. When Jimmy would say, hey, man, you're a great jammer. You play just as good as I do. And I said, thank you. Why would you have me in your band otherwise? I was cocky, and so was he. And that's how I felt. Why would you have me in your band otherwise? But he wanted to let me know because he was that kind of a friend. If you look at the footage from Woodstock, I came up with the name Gypsy Sun and Rainbows. He liked the band, the Gypsies, and we kind of talked about that and not argue, but discuss it. And you know, it was the time, sunshine, Gypsy, sun and rainbows. You know, those were the times. So yeah, that sounds pretty cool. He said, but I like Band of Gypsies as well. So if you look at the footage, he says, hey, we're Gypsy, Sun and Rainbows, just a band of gypsies. And he turns and looks at me. Like, I did that for you, bro. That's the kind of guy he really was. He was a great friend. He was, you know, he grew up in Seattle, where there weren't very many African Americans in Seattle. I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in areas that there weren't any Puerto Ricans. We were always the first family in every community. But apart from that, we were both left-handed. So lefties, you live in a completely, anyone who's left-handed out there knows what I'm talking about. You live in a completely different world. Everything is based on right-handed people. Over 2,500 lefties die a year by using right-handed equipment. Think of it, left out, left over, leftist. I mean, it's all negative connotations, the hand of the devil. But anyway, we spoke of that, and we spoke about how our lives were integrated into communities that we felt totally comfortable in, but we didn't look like the rest of them, although we both felt like everybody loved us in our community. We didn't feel the prejudice that many of our relatives and colleagues felt. And that's, Jimmy said, well, I'm coming to New York, Chief, because I was the New York band, and he would come and hang out with me. And I spent a lot of time with a lot of the older guys, so they got me into all the clubs. And I brought Jimmy, and I'd get him into the clubs, not because he wasn't Jimi Hendrix, it was because which clubs I was going to take my man to, and we were going to have some fun. Now, the other thing is we played in Harlem, and he wanted to play for the African American community in Harlem. And we did a show. And there was another Woodstock. It was called the Black Woodstock, and that was happening in Harlem. Got no recognition. We're doing a film right now on it. And basically a lot of the most incredible African-American musicians, Sly and the Family Stone, The Temptations, they were all there. That 3-day event was happening in Harlem. I saw that on the 15th, which is my birthday, August 15th. By the way, Woodstock was my first professional performance, and it was my 22nd birthday. So it was a very monumental weekend. I just wanted things to go sideways. Unfortunately, I fell right down, and I finally learned how to be a musician and worked my way back up to understanding what my craft is. And so was Jimmy. He was way ahead of all of us, of course, with that. What I like to tell the younger people today is that they must carry the spirit, as Michael had mentioned before. You got to carry that spirit of, it's our time. Every generation needs their heroes. What Chase is doing here, he's recognizing the greatness that came before him. But he's saying, I'm going to take that, learn that, and then apply my experience, my relationship to my friends and people through my music. And that's the personal relationship we all have with music. It's an interpretive thing, as we all know. It's an abstract. What you may think of this is a phone, we can all agree on that, correct? But what I like and what you like, it could be completely different, musically and politically. All those wonderful ways that make us different. When I look out into this crowd and I see all the different people out here, we're all different but yet the same. If you travel around the world, you see that. And that's what Jimmy was talking about, and that's what we were talking about. Let it go. You know, John Lennon was saying, forget about nationalism, forget about borders, forget about nationalities, and we're all human beings, we should all work together. And that was the spirit of Woodstock. We went up to Woodstock saying, no, we won't go. We're not going to go to Vietnam and fight people who actually did nothing to us. Obviously, most of you know America is a war economy, so if we're not in a war, we're not making money. We're not churning money, unfortunately. That's something we have to figure out, of course. But that's the way the world works, and we're all trying to change that. And good people all around the world have to continue with the struggle. That's what we tried at Woodstock. Of course, it was flawed, as man is, as we were. But it established something, and established the concerts you see today. So on behalf of the Jimi Hendrix Foundation, myself, my brother Jimmy, Billy Cox, Juma Sultan, Larry Lee, and a myriad of other people that were involved, I want to thank you all for being here. Chaz, I want to thank you once again for all that you're doing. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, awesome. So thank you so much for that, Mr. Velez. So we're almost there. Before we unveil, I'd just like to say that I'm very grateful to those who have spoken and had such amazing, great stories. There's also people in the audience that have had a personal connection to Jimmy, so there's plenty of great stories to go around, so I encourage everyone to talk afterwards and meet up. Feels wonderful to have this marker here, and I hope it continues to spread a beautiful message from a very talented man. I'd like to invite all the speakers up with me to assist me in the unveiling, so I can't wait to see it. So let's do it.
Drum roll, please. 1, 2, 3.
Wow, that is so cool. Excuse me, why I get this good? Okay. Yes, yes, yes.
to step on and the dog like a swing on it. Instead, you're going to find this one like this. I want to go to
One, two, three. Smile. There you go. Congratulations, my friend.
We need my husband. Okay.